Coming up next on Executive Caterers Corporate Club at Landerhaven, we're looking at transforming education with Mayor Frank Jackson and Eric Gordon, CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. They'll be discussing their transformation plans with Channel 5's Emmy Award-winning anchor, Leon Bibb.
From the Grand Ballroom at Executive Caterers at Landerhaven, thank you for joining us as we celebrate more than 20 years of presenting important and timely discussions. Corporate Club is the direct link for community leaders to connect with regional businesses, government, and nonprofit organizations. This series of programs deals with those issues and persons that impact on the lives of those who live in Northeastern Ohio. Corporate Club at Landerhaven begins right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to have just a spirited conversation. I'm Leon Bibb from NewsChannel 5, and I'm going to be talking to two people that you know so well. You certainly have seen their images on television, heard their voices on radio, seen their images in the newspapers throughout Northeast Ohio. My good friend Frank Jackson, the mayor of the city of Cleveland, my good friend Eric Gordon, who's CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Won't you make them feel very warm and welcome today? Gentlemen, you got your hands full. You've got an issue on the ballot. Here we are at election time, and you've got issue number 107 on the ballot. And Superintendent or CEO Eric Gordon of Cleveland Schools, tell me, what would 107 do if that issue passes?
Well, when it passes, we'll start there. Issue 107 is the resources we need to implement the Cleveland Transformation Plan. We have 10 promises to the community, including aggressive intervention in our lowest performing schools, attracting, retaining, and paying teachers and leaders for the work that they do, using differentiated pay that looks at performance and skill as well as seniority and longevity. It looks at being able to extend the school year and school day, and it also restores some of the cuts we've had to make in the past. Those are some examples of what it'll allow us to do.
How much money again will that do? Will that bring us?
At our current collection rate, it'll generate a little over $65 million. If it collected a full rate, it'd be almost $85 million.
Mayor, you are in charge of schools now as a result of legislation which and decisions which were made several years ago when Michael White, your predecessor, was in the mayor's office. So the mayor's office is very much involved in schools, thus your presence here today. Will the money fix the problem from your estimation?
Money alone never fixes problems. The money, along with the reform plan that we have and the legislative reform that we got out of Columbus, the combination of those two things will give us the best chance we've ever had to fix whatever problems may be and really to get ahead of everyone else.
We've got how many students in the school system right now? 41,000. And you're trying to keep that blood flow from going away. You're trying to keep those 41,000 and raise those numbers back up to whatever it was, certainly when I was in school back a long time ago, 100,000 or whatever it was many years ago. Can this do that for you? Can 107 do this for you?
Well, what it lets us do is move more kids into better seats. So the question isn't, can we just pour them into schools and keep enrollment up? But the question is, can we shift more kids into better seats, whether they're district schools or whether they're high-quality charter schools, so that we can address the problems that do exist and get more kids a much more high-quality education for our community, which is how we accelerate graduation rates in college and post-secondary experiences for our community.
Yeah. And the superintendent is correct. Our focus is not to grow the population per se. Is to provide quality education, and the natural consequences of having quality education, the population will grow. So we're not just focused on, that's a collateral benefit to what we're trying to do. Our purpose is to have quality education, and we're not arguing over whether it's a public system or a charter system. We're saying that our children deserve quality education, and that we will work with anyone who will help us do that. And we know that in doing that, then our population will grow. A prime example is what's happening at John Hare Campus International, where we have children from other school districts. Their parents have decided to send their children to our schools because of the quality of education.
If you get those quality education, if you raise the level of education, you get to increase your population here in this city. Back to when you and I were growing up, when we had upwards of 800,000 or some figure, something like that.
It would take many things, but I will say that if we're able to produce quality education and people make choices where they want to live, where they want to locate their businesses, where they make investments, just education alone will stop population decline and have some modest growth. When you add other things into that, such as the economic prosperity and and quality of life, you will see tremendous growth in population.
Let me give you an example. We know in downtown now we have nearly a 100% occupancy rate of young people living in town. We know that there's about 150 children between 0 and age 5. So that gives us the opportunity to put a opportunity for primary school in the downtown area that serves that community in a high quality way, so that when families get to the age of deciding for their child about kindergarten, the choice isn't just a default to now we have to move to the suburbs, but that instead we can stay in the city and enjoy a high quality experience in a Cleveland Metropolitan School District.
Let me ask this quick sidebar question. We're talking about downtown population. Mr. Mayor, quickly, how many people do we have living downtown now?
I think it's between 11 and 12,000. It could be many more than that, except for the financial collapse and the housing market kind of went away. But right now, as the superintendent says, we're almost at 100% on rental. And as the housing market picks up for ownership, you'll see that we'll gain thousands in a very short period of time.
Mr. Gordon, the mayor mentioned the word the housing crisis. Foreclosure had to hit Cleveland schools. It hit everybody, of course, but it had to hit Cleveland schools very, very hard. Speak to that, about how it hit you and where you are now as a result of the foreclosure crisis we've seen all over the United States.
Well, it's the foreclosure crisis, which was a part of a bigger economic collapse in our country. And so the challenge we face as a district is that our state revenue has dropped by about $74 million in a 2-year period, and our federal revenue dropped $84 million in that same 2-year period, even as the real estate in Cleveland and across the country went through the foreclosure, which meant tax collections dropped also to historic lows in our city. So what that meant for us as a district is that revenue that we've been previously dependent upon to continue to service children vanished, literally vanished, which caused us to cut over $114 million out of our budget. We've laid off over 1,000 staff members in a 3-year period alone. We've closed schools, we've cut programs, we've reduced services, we've shortened the day, and none of those things are going to get us to prosperity. We cannot cut our way to prosperity, which gets us to the point of whether we're going to reinvest in our schools right now. That's issue 107.
There are a lot of people here in this audience right here, and certainly a lot of people who are watching on television right now, watching us, who do not live in the city of Cleveland. What do you tell them as to why they should care?
Well, first of all, they're children, so they should care just because of that. But secondly, if they're looking at their own self-interest, whatever happens in Cleveland is going to happen somewhere else. And I know people may be able to drive home and live somewhere else or work somewhere else and think it won't touch them, but it'll catch them. And we are beginning to see some of those indicators in other suburban school districts that exist in our school district that they need to pay attention to.
Yeah. We had lunch together upstairs. The three of us had lunch together about a half an hour ago, and one of the things we were talking about was some of this, of course. You used the phrase, Eric Gordon, a CEO of Cleveland Schools, you used the phrase in lunch, we have islands of excellence throughout the Cleveland School District. What do you mean by those islands of excellence?
Well, I can show you examples throughout the city and in virtually every school, examples of where we've gotten it exactly right. Today in the room we have young people from John Hay Architecture and Design High School. These are young people that I can feel very confident are going to college, they're going to be successful in college, and they came right out of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I can show you model after model, our New Tech models, our Campus International models, our Gender School models, our Cleveland School of the Arts, our Montessori School. Example after example of where we know how to do this work and we know how to do it right. The issue for us, and it's the issue for urban districts across the country, is how do you take these islands of excellence and bring them to scale? And that's what the legislation that the mayor and our partners really championed going to Columbus, is to give us the tools to be able to bring these islands of excellence to scale. Now we're asking for the resources to make the investments to do so.
And this transformation plan, the Cleveland Schools Transformation Plan, that will bring it to scale? These islands of excellence become more of a continent?
Those are the tools. We went after modernizing work rules, and the Cleveland Teachers Union were tremendous champions at modernizing work rules that have long existed from the 40s and the 50s and 60s, a different way of teaching. We went after the ability to collaborate with charter schools in a positive way instead of the very loggerhead way that we've been doing it in our state in the past, so we can incentivize the very best. Some of them are here today, and we can screen out those that are the worst performing. And we went after flexibilities that let us get into our lowest performing schools and make quick decisions about change. Those three components together with the resources give us the tools we need to take what has already worked across our city and spread it more quickly so that we get the results we need.
Now, this 3 phases. First phase was reform plan. We would never ask anybody for a levy to just continue the same old thing. So the reform plan gives us the tool. The financial side gives us the wherewithal to be effective with those tools and get the job done in a shorter period of time. The third phase is all about execution and implementation. And that means the superintendent then will have the responsibility of looking at his organizational structure and what does he need to do to have changes in that organizational structure and the movement of people, having the right people in the right place in order to execute the plan. So first part, plan, second part, financial, third part, execution.
And I would argue the fourth part is accountability. What we've given voters in this choice, which has never happened in Cleveland before, is that this levy expires in 4 years. So that when we demonstrate that this system can improve rapidly, we're going to ask for a renewal of commitment. But if we don't, the voters get to hold us accountable by not renewing this levy. So there's an element of accountability that we've never seen in Cleveland before.
So we've got a 4-year, we're going to be looking at this passes, and you're saying when this passes.
When this passes.
We're looking at a 4-year track record.
That's right.
And you're saying, hold my feet to the fire.
Absolutely.
That's what you're telling Northeast Ohio, what you're telling Cleveland.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And you're saying that too, Mayor.
That's right. We debated or discussed about whether it should be 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. The 2 reasons why it's 4 years, first of all, if it was 5 years, you take a break, right? So you got to make it, the closer you make it and the more intense and urgent you make it, the better off we all are. And then I wanted to make sure that when the renewal came up, then I would still be in office. I didn't want to have to say, well, look, I'm gone, I'm not worried about it. That's part of the accountability, because we designed this that if this does not work, you can hold me accountable because I'm asking people to vote for this. So it will happen, the renewal will happen in my next term.
You running for re-election?
I'm running for re-election, and one of the primary reasons I'm running is this. I have 36 years in government. 23 as elected official, and 13 in the court system. And so I could retire. But I cannot do that and ask the elected officials in Columbus and our partners here locally to take the risk that they had to take to pass the plan. I cannot do that, retire, and then go to the public and say, look, I need you to pass a 15 mil levy, but don't worry, I'm gone, right? And then I cannot do that when, in effect, our ability to do full implementation will happen June of next year. Now, we're going to do some things between now and then, But our ability to have full implementation when the collective bargaining agreements expire in June is when, I will be not running again. Mm-hmm. So in order, as the superintendent says, we have to be all in this. We have to be completely and totally committed to it if we're going to ask the public, elected officials, and the community at large to be as committed. So you never ask anybody to do something you're not doing first and doing more than what you're asking them to do.
Yeah. I've been covering Cleveland schools and Cleveland government and other things in Northeast Ohio for more than 30 years. Mm-hmm. You'll hear my question coming before I even pop it. I've covered Peter Carlin as a superintendent, Leftwich as a superintendent. There was another name which escapes me right now. Dr. Boyd, another Dr. Boyd, Fred Holliday, Barbara Byrd Bennett, Eugene Sanders, and I probably left out somebody along the way. Will you be around? Do you plan on staying in the Cleveland school system to make sure that this happens, and once this passes, if voters say okay, will you be here?
Well, keep in mind, I'm only half of the decision maker. The board members that are sitting in the audience are the other half. So here's the bet. I have to get this done so that I have a job to stay here for. Mm-hmm. I want to be here. I own a home in Cleveland. I've made my life in Cleveland. I didn't take this job on because I thought it was the next step to anything. I took this job on because this is where I want to do the work. Yeah. And I want to be held accountable for that work. And in 4 years, when voters are deciding whether we've done it sufficiently or not, then I'll be able to answer your question. But I expect to be here to ask the question.
Yeah. You came, you've been with the district for some years now. How many years has it been?
This is the beginning of my 6th year.
Your 6th year, and you just started as the CEO a year ago, was it?
A little over a year.
A little more than a year ago. Where'd you grow up?
Oh, I've been in Toledo and Pittsburgh, so both sides of Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Public school systems, right?
Public schools.
Yeah. When did you know that you wanted to go into education, Eric?
I don't know that I ever didn't know that I wanted to go into education. As long as I can remember, I wanted to teach. I still want to teach. When I get to work with my colleagues, that's what I want to do. I want to teach. It's just who I am and what I've always wanted to be.
Mayor, you grew up in Cleveland here too, a product of the Cleveland school system.
Right.
Do you call upon those memories inside the Cleveland School District when you go about your job talking about education, certainly your job at City Hall?
Well, I don't know if I call on it. I have the experience, so it's part of me. And I don't, if I ever take the time to think about something, I wasted a few seconds. So, I just
things come at you from all directions when in politics.
I don't have that time. So I just move. But you're right. Since I've come up through the public school system here in Cleveland, it's just part of me. So I imagine that does factor in.
Uh-huh. We were talking upstairs, before we take a break, we can squeeze this one in. We were talking upstairs about suburban expansion and the impact it has had on our, how we look at life, on how we look at education. Speak a couple of seconds of that, won't you, Eric?
Sure. Well, we've seen an out-migration into suburbs, and the mayor mentioned this earlier, that there's a lot that can be learned from Cleveland and from urban communities, because as out-migration has continued to occur, our first-ring suburban communities are starting to see some of the same opportunities and some of the same challenges that we've had, and people have then moved on to second-tier. But I think we're also starting to see an inward migration too, recognizing that we've spread a finite amount of resources very broadly, a lot of school districts involved, a lot of communities involved, and that as prices continue to go up, we talked about gas prices hitting $5 a gallon in California, that we probably are not going to be able to live, work, and play in 3 different places in our lives anymore, that we have to find a place for those together. I would argue that we have a great place to bring those, and that's right back down to the city of Cleveland.
And with the education system, that will occur rapidly.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk about something called toxic nostalgia, about looking back at the old days, and maybe the old days weren't all that good. Eric Gordon is going to speak to that. We've got to do something first. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Landerhaven was created for that special moment in people's lives, and that special moment is a wedding reception. From the concept to the decorations to the entrance down the staircase, creating the magic with great service, fine wine and food, an elegant wedding cake, beautiful grounds and gardens, unforgettable images. For a wedding reception you'll always remember, executive caterers at Landerhaven.
Is it getting so frustrating at your office that it's harder and harder and harder to get any work done? You need services you can count on, starting with business class phone from Time Warner Cable Business Class. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Why put up with more frustrations than you have to? Enjoy our reliable solutions. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Time Warner Cable Business Class.
You live in Ohio, you work in Ohio, and when you have questions about your health insurance, you like talking with someone who's right here in Ohio. That's why you carry the Medical Mutual card. Our card comes with the best customer service anywhere. More than 2,700 dedicated employees are right here in Ohio. It's our job to take care of your healthcare needs, so you can focus on what's most important, getting well. Medical Mutual, the official health insurer of the Cleveland Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns.
Curiosity inspires us to explore our world with open eyes and an open mind. It invites unique experiences we can learn and grow from. It's an essential root of our culture. So, when does culture meet with curiosity? Around noon. Listen with curiosity. Join the conversation tomorrow around noon on 90.3 WCPN, your all-day brain food.
Thank you. Good to have you with us as we continue our discussion. For those of you on television who may be joining us, we are joined today by Mayor Frank Jackson of the City of Cleveland and by Eric Gordon, who's the CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and we're having just a spirited conversation about education in the City of Cleveland and other things as well, the City of Cleveland in general as well. I should add that Eric Gordon is a finalist for the nation's top educator award in urban education. He's a finalist. So congratulations. We wish you well as you go on to grab the brass ring or the gold statue or whatever it is that they give you. But he's a finalist. We wish you well.
That's a credit to all of the people doing the work.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about urban education. It is a challenge running a district. What surprised you when you came on as the CEO? Were there any surprises that you did not know were waiting for you there?
You know, we talked a little bit about this. I don't know where I'd even begin. But what I would say the biggest surprise for me is how fast things move, how time moved. And my team is here with me today, and I remember pretty early in the CEO position, I would say, you know that conversation we had last week? And they would say, Eric, that was this morning. And very honestly, and I had put it in the back of my head and was on to the next thing, and it had already become part of history. And for the rest of the team, it really was literally hours before. And so just how quickly you have to be able to move in order to make this system move with the urgency we know that it can and that it needs to. That was my biggest one.
Yeah. We saw a few weeks ago that the teachers in Chicago went out on strike, and they have since ended that strike and are back on the job in Chicago in the public school district there. I had seen something in the paper, and it escapes me right now exactly what it was, but how Cleveland had averted something that Chicago had not averted, and there was a tie between Cleveland schools and Chicago schools. Can you refresh my memory of that, you or the mayor?
Sure. So the Chicago schools are, in their contract negotiations, we're discussing how new teacher performance systems should be implemented and what level of student performance should influence that teacher performance. And that issue, along with the length of their school day, became kind of the two major issues of the Chicago Teachers Union strike. For us in Cleveland, our teachers union and district had already agreed now 2 years ago to reform our teacher evaluation system. 50% of our teachers and our principals' evaluations will be based on student performance, and we're in the third year of implementation, where this year all of our teachers and principals are going through this very robust rubric to evaluate their quality. So it's an issue that our teachers union district had tackled already 2 years ago. In addition, the legislation that we fought for already gives us the ability to set the calendar, the length of day, the length of year, so it didn't become a matter of continued negotiation. And what I would say that is probably even more important about what's going on in Cleveland is those were the only two significant issues in Chicago. Those actually are two of many reform issues that we struggled through together as partners through the legislation that allows us to reform the system. So what we got in Cleveland is much more aggressive reform, and we did it as partners with the teachers union, with charter leaders, with business leaders, philanthropy leaders, and with the mayor's amazing leadership to get bipartisan support in Columbus.
Yeah. Mayor, how does speak to the entire teacher situation and how we raise the level of education or keep the level of education up there? How do we do that from your chair as the mayor?
Well, I learned quickly not to get into a kitchen when I don't know how to cook. and so that's the superintendent does that. And I give him complete authority and I have complete confidence in his ability to evaluate and identify what he needs, not only in terms of resource, but talent and the personality he has and the deployment of that. So that's really something I think you should be asking the superintendent because he's the expert on that, not me.
So as far as the mayor is in control, of course, overall the schools, but you're letting him.
That don't mean I should be dipping. You never. I learned what they say: never get in a working person's way unless you intend to do the job yourself, right? And so I'm not even. The mayor, under mayoral control, the mayor does not run everyday operation and it does not set the budgetary. The mayor doesn't do that. The mayor picks all the members of the board, chooses the chairman of the board, and between that board and the mayor, they choose the superintendent. The operation of the system is within the system. The superintendent and the board run the system, and that's the way it should be. Now, I know that there may have been other people who would want to interfere, but that's not a good thing to do if you don't know what you're doing.
That's not the Frank Jackson style.
No.
Okay. Don't dip in there, as you say.
Don't dip.
Okay.
Well, you can't hold people responsible for something when you're interfering.
Amen.
And believe me, I hold people accountable and responsible for outcome, and for that, I give them the discretion to do their job. And if they fail to do it, then I'll deal with it then. But so far, the superintendent and the board has done a great job.
I brought with me my old high school yearbook. I'm a graduate of the Glenville school system, Glenville High School. And which is part of the Cleveland School District. And I know you're looking for the date on there, Mayor. It's underneath my hand.
I was looking at the grades.
Yeah, well, and I brought a couple of report cards.
Yeah.
That one is from the fourth grade.
Pass those over here.
And this is from the second grade. Really, it's true.
Let me see it.
And when my mother was alive, Mother kept all of those. And when I borrowed them, I actually had to almost sign them out from her like a library book. Yeah. Mother's gone now, so I've inherited my own cards there. And
so it looks like your fourth grade teacher knew that you were going to be a reporter. You work very well and are a fine citizen, but you talk a little too much.
Well, it's true. They have no idea. They have no idea.
You should have kept all this.
I should have kept all that, but she did.
See, that stuff didn't used to happen back then. Kids only talk too much now. That's the toxic nostalgia I was telling you about.
So I guess maybe I was probably boning up or getting ready to go in the business that I'm in. Let's talk a little bit about the past. You and I talked upstairs a little bit about what you call toxic nostalgia.
Right.
What is toxic nostalgia? I tended to think that, well, back in my day, the Cleveland schools we were there, we were doing it, and we were just wonderful in every which way. Were we wonderful?
We were wonderful in a lot of ways. What's toxic about toxic nostalgia isn't the nostalgia. It's that somehow we ignore all of the other things that were also true. So we also know that high school diplomas weren't necessary for many, many children who became adults and went into factory work, went into foundries, went into great jobs that they, that at age 16, that was your ticket out the door. You didn't have to finish school. But you talk to a lot of people and say, nope, everyone in my class graduated, every single one. Well, we know in 1996, when the state started recording graduation rates, 39% of Cleveland students were graduating. We've increased that by 23.5% since then, and we expect another 3.8% on the report cards when they're finally released this year. Not where we need to be, but if we look at it from a toxic nostalgia perspective, we weren't at 100%. It simply wasn't necessary. And so it's a question of keeping a perspective about, kids were not somehow coming out of Lake Wobegon then and suddenly doing nothing but wrong now. Kids were kids. Some of them talked too much, even then, Kids were kids. They didn't all graduate, even then. And so it's about a perspective for me, is taking and remembering what is working well, but not painting a picture that says there were no flaws and now we have a system that's simply fundamentally broken when the evidence doesn't actually support that.
And I would tell you, I know that people talk about what happens in the school buildings. And when I was in junior high, I was always behind. So I was almost 20 years old when I graduated from high school. So when I was in the 7th grade, I think I was about 14 years old, and I was young. And they had children, young men in the school. They were 17, 18, 19 years old, and the school only went up to the 9th grade. And it was, they ran it like a prison. And so a superintendent came in. I remember the second year I went there that they cut it off, that you could be no older than 16 years old to be in a junior high. So it's still nostalgic about the way in which buildings operated and the conditions. It wasn't that I can remember. It wasn't that way then.
So let me just use that as...
But that being said, the type of things that young people do now may have been a little bit different in the magnitude of it. Today is compared.
But so here's to the perfect point. So the mayor of our city, who has been a tremendous leader, got his diploma at 20 years old, in Ohio would be a dropout in the graduation rate, even though he has his diploma, because he didn't graduate on time in 4 years. And so if we had looked at the records at the time the mayor graduated, he would not be counted as a graduate in the state of Ohio, even though he has a diploma. And so that's what I mean about toxic nostalgia, is that people weren't marching on this absolute perfect march then, and somehow we all just the wheels came off and we're off track. We've always had a large number of young people being successful through our system and moving at their own pace, where learning was the constant and time was the variable. But we've also had challenges to face throughout that time, and we still have those challenges today.
You went on to school after that.
Right.
Tri-C.
Well, Tri-C for associates, Cleveland State for bachelor's, master's, and a law degree.
And when you were in Toledo schools, how were you doing as a student in Toledo public schools?
Well, I didn't go to Toledo public schools. I was out in a farm country there. But I was an okay student. I ended up being a math teacher, and part of the reason I taught math is I wasn't really great at it. A lot of teachers go into the thing that they were super at, and I actually went into math because it was hard for me, and I figured if I can figure this out, then I can help somebody else figure this out. So if you looked at my report cards, and I didn't bring mine, you would find that I probably had some positive comments about being a good citizen and those sorts of things, and then had but Eric fidgets too much. I never have sat still well. That he needs to pay more attention and work harder. I was a kid just like everybody else. I have some strengths on my report card, and I know a C and a D on my report card.
Me too. At best, I was an average student, maybe a little bit below average in high school. But it was not until college, after I begged my way into a college, it was not until college that I really found my footprint, my footpath, and the pathway to success. What do these three stories tell you about young people, students, and where they are and where they may be going?
You have to give them opportunity. and you have to give them whatever it is that they need and should have, whether they pay attention to it or not. That's not relevant. But you have to do it. We can no longer get involved in saying, well, that's good enough for those kids, and have a low expectation of children, and really treat them in a way as if it is not, almost as if it's not acceptable for them to excel or learn. It is the change of attitude that we need to have as a community as to our children and how we should treat our children, and give them everything they need, because sooner or later they're going to wake up. And when they do, whatever you put in there, they're going to utilize. But if you garbage in, garbage out, and a low expectation of children, if you raise the bar for them, and they know you care about them, they'll always do better than what you expect.
As I look through my yearbook from Glenville High School from 1960, whatever it was, as I go through this and look at some of the photographs of the students in here, I see students, some of whom came out of Glenville High School, came out, graduated, or some dropped out beforehand. Most of them came out. And some of them did not go to college. They went directly into the plant. Some went to the Ford plant. Some went to the General Motors plant out in Parma. Some went to what was then Republic Steel. But everybody could get a job. They could apply for a job on Tuesday, and they'd say, well, can you come back and start work on Thursday? It was just that quick in those days. Things have changed. Speak to how things have changed and how education must change because the times have changed.
Well, I'm going to tie it to your previous question about why I do this work too, because I was supposed to go work at Dutch Road with my dad. That was the John Mansfield factory. They built the shingles for the space shuttles. They were these great new things that NASA was preparing, which of course now don't exist. There's not a whole lot of reason for Johns Manville to be on Dutch Road anymore. And when I look at our kids and I think about, why is this so important and why are these opportunities so important, it's because any one of these kids could be the superintendent of the Cleveland Public Schools. I know, because I'm not supposed to be sitting here right now. And it's because of what education allowed me that I am. And so what does that mean about schooling? I shared with our staff one time, we actually took 10th grade chemistry homework, and we asked everybody on our staff to do the problems. Because we, are all high school graduates, some of us have bachelor's and master's degrees, and none of us could. And I said, well, didn't we take 10th grade chemistry? And then we all kind of sheepishly said, yeah, we did. So we put it into a website called wolframalpha.com. It's the new Google, it's the mathematical Google. And it solved it, and it told us it was Teflon. Well, if my kids can log on to Wolfram Alpha and do the chemistry homework that we don't even still remember how to do, then the trick here isn't just that they learn content, but they know what to do with it. And that means making sure that it's problem-based, it's project-based, it's internships, it's mentorships, it's apprenticeships, it's stackable certificates. It's taking content and be able to use it and apply it. That's what schooling has to look like. And we're making a really aggressive shift to try to make more and more of our schooling a personalized, problem-based experience, where you take a theme that you love and you apply and apply and apply, so that you can take those skills and go do jobs that we don't even know exist yet. That's what it's got to look like.
And to add on that means that education is just not what exists in the building. This is a community effort. And the business community or other types of professions should bring children into their business to give them the exposure so that they can understand there is another way. There are choices to be made. And when we do that and we expose them to a variety of things, they usually make the right decision. And then our job inside the building is giving them those skills they need in order to be able to do whatever it is. But the community as a large has a tremendous responsibility outside of these buildings to educate our children, to give our children exposure, to give our children opportunity, to let our children see the many different ways that they can go in life. And when that happens, you find that they always do, again, much better than the expectation.
And Leon, you were asking earlier about scale, and this is really important. In 1983, a report called A Nation at Risk was released, and it said that if we don't do something about education first in urban centers and across our nation, we were going to fall behind other parts of the world. And the country was just aghast. That couldn't possibly happen. And look at us today, where we're ranked 12th and 14th as a nation. But since 1983, no city has taken this on entirely as a citywide responsibility.
It's a community.
Except for us.
This program, this plan.
Well, this plan and all of the partners.
This is a community effort. This is a community effort from the business community to labor to philanthropic to political to charter to public. This is a community effort, not only in developing a plan, but to support the passage of this levy, and will lend whatever technical assistance the superintendent needs to be able to fully execute and implement in the time period we need.
I've got to take a break right here, but one 10-second question and answer. The nation is watching Cleveland to see how we do, because the nation is going to follow.
The problems that exist in education exist all over this country. There, and many different urban centers have attempted to address it in some way. I believe we're probably the only one that is doing it in a community, holistic, systemic way.
My 10 seconds is we're big enough to get it done right, or small enough to get it done right, big enough to matter when we do.
We're going to take a break in a moment. Questions from the audience with Mayor Frank Jackson and CEO Eric Gordon of Cleveland Schools.
For a wedding reception you'll always remember, executive caterers at Landerhaven.
Is it getting so frustrating at your office that it's harder and harder and harder to get any work done? You need services you can count on, starting with business class phone from Time Warner Cable Business Class. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Why put up with more frustrations than you have to? Enjoy our reliable solutions. Get business class phone and receive up to 6 months free internet or cable TV. Time Warner Cable Business Class.
You live in Ohio, you work in Ohio, and when you have questions about your health insurance, you like talking with someone who's right here in Ohio. That's why you carry the Medical Mutual card. Our card comes with the best customer service anywhere. More than 2,700 dedicated employees are right here in Ohio. It's our job to take care of your healthcare needs, so you can focus on what's most important, getting well. Medical Mutual, the official health insurer of the Cleveland Indians, Cavaliers, and Browns.
Thank you. We continue our discussion with Cleveland Mayor Frank Jackson and with Cleveland Metropolitan School District CEO Eric Gordon. I always want to say Cleveland Public Schools, because that's going back from my day, but that was a long, long time ago, as you well know. We're going to take questions from our audience. So if we've got a question in the hopper already, and we've got one deep, deep down in left center field, right down the alley.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Fuller, and I'm from John Hay Architecture and Design. And my question was, what can we do as students to better our school districts? Because I know it's always about the parents, but we have to do something for ourselves as well. So I was wondering, what advice could you give us for us and our little siblings?
You know, there's actually this funny phenomenon about schools that students actually know what we need to do to fix them. What I would tell you to do is that every one of our schools, particularly our high schools, as part of our transformation laws, actually are required to have student advisories that have students from all parts of the school who actually give direct feedback both to the principals, the teachers of the school, and also to me as your superintendent about what it is that is a problem for you in your school so that we can address it. And so I would say get actively involved and make sure that your school this year, as we begin these, has a very active student voice so that we can hear exactly what it is that you need in your schools to be successful. And it needs to go beyond, I don't like the lunch. It needs to be digging into, there's a real problem here. We don't have enough of this, or we don't have this kind of program that is going to help me be successful, or I need support in getting ready for ACT, or whatever it is that students need, you know the answers, so be a voice and be very proactive in joining your student advisory at your school as we set them up this year.
Mm-hmm. You had students encourage them to vote the other day, didn't you?
Every year,
those who are old enough to vote, of course.
Right. Every year, as part of our social studies curriculum, every student who is of age to vote, we help register and vote. And this year, we had about 400 students doing early voting. Actually, yesterday at the Board of Elections, and it was really nice to see our students taking their first step into the civic active life. It was very cool.
Okay, we've got another question right over here.
Hi, I was just wondering, you've talked about the community-based nature of all of this and the charter schools and the public schools. Is there a role for some of the private schools to be playing in the transformation process?
The quick answer is yes, even though they're not included in the legislation, and they would not be included in the revenues received from the levy. But the quick answer is yes. Ideally, we would have loved to have expanded it to private, parochial, charter, public. But we were advised that particularly if we went into parochial schools, that we would have some constitutional kind of issues around what we were doing, and it would just have delayed it. And since we needed to move and move quickly, it was us and primarily Breakthrough Charter in our local group, but charters in general that are high performing. But yes, there's always a role. Our goal is to have quality education. It doesn't matter which system it comes out of. It's quality education.
On that, go ahead.
Just quickly say, as we roll out the blueprint that we've been discussing, which is a quarter-by-quarter blueprint for the next 4 years, it is our hope that our partner schools in the private community will be able to see where they can plug in really naturally and say, wow, we have that resource that can really help you move. So for example, we've talked about preschool education training with one of our private partners and about doing that together for the public schools and the private schools as just one example.
Or if we have expertise and where they may want to send their children, or we could send our children. So there's more of a collaborative approach around education.
Let's go back out to left center field.
Hello, I'm Russell Miller. I'm from Lincoln West High School. I have a quick question for CEO Eric Gordon. Why don't you ever pay any visits to the public schools?
Why don't I?
Oh, pay a visit to a public school, like any of the Cleveland public schools. Why don't you come visit them?
Oh, I actually visit the schools quite a bit, and I was at Lincoln West a couple of weeks ago, sat in your cafeteria and had a meeting with the academic officers so that I was out seeing exactly what's happening. I try very hard to be in our schools. What I need you to help support me in is that there's 100 schools and one of me, so even if I hit a school a day, I will probably only get into your particular school one time. I will tell you I'm very proud of the Wolverines, though, because you're actually my community high school where I live, so go Wolverines.
Over here.
Hi, gentlemen. I'm Kathleen Cullen with Your Story Social. And Eric, I'm following you on Twitter, and I'm loving it. And for everybody that doesn't know, you are Eric Gordon _CEO. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's a pretty bold move. How are you using social media to tell these great stories and get the messages out like you're telling us here today, a captive audience? What's the kind of strategy for using social media not only to engage the parents in the community, but the students as well?
Well, first I have to say, and this goes to the young man from Lincoln West, and I'm sorry I didn't hear your name, but the reason I'm on social media is because Destiny, who is a student at Success Tech, taught me how to be on social media. So you got to look to the people who know. And I use it to tell the stories I'm seeing in my schools. And so when you go back through my Twitter feed, you'll see my visit to Lincoln West, you'll see my visit to Case, you'll see my visit to John Hay, you'll see my visit to Campus International. Because I shared earlier, there are great examples of our kids doing the right stuff every single day, and it's my opportunity to push that out. It has also become an opportunity for people to pose questions that they want help for or get answers for, and so it tries to give me an opportunity also to respond to those questions. I will tell you I'm learning, and so it is a medium that I'm not familiar with and is not my life, and I've looked to my students to help me do it. Yesterday, Destiny helped me start learning Facebook, so you may see me there soon as well.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why we're doing this and taking the time to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it, is that we would hope that you would do the same thing, that you would share with people what you have learned. And if it's something that you don't agree with or do agree with, you know, we would like you to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Is there another question here? We've got a question in the center of the room. We can get a microphone right here in the center room. And while we're waiting on, you're ready? And while we're waiting on a microphone to get there, let me ask a quick question. For 40 years or no, we've been talking about changing the way we fund education in the state of Ohio. Are we going to ever do this? I've asked this question at least 3 times a year on programs like this. When will we find a way to fix funding in education in the state of Ohio so it is more equal?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I know the Supreme Court has said it is unconstitutional many times, but it never required anybody to do anything about it.
We've been found unconstitutional, though, right?
4 different times.
Four different times in the state of Ohio.
I don't know that I can answer the question of when we're going to change it in Ohio. I can tell you we're going to change the way we fund schools in Cleveland on November 6th.
All right.
So that's you at least doing it that way.
I'm Jessica Semmel from the Jewish Federation of Cleveland, and this will be on Facebook in about 7 minutes when I'm back at the office, because I always post this stuff. I don't know who likes what I do, but I put it up anyway. And I just want to let you know, you're talking about community involvement, and it makes my heart feel warm and wonderful, because we run through Federation a program called the Public Education Initiative. We have 200 volunteers of all faiths and all ages, from like 17 to 90. And we're in 8 schools right now. We started at 1 school with 20 volunteers. And we're at Breakthrough Charter Schools, we're at your public schools, and I just want to let you know that the community is behind you. And we're here to help.
That's music to your ears, I'm certain, Mayor. I've got a question over here.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Macklin, and I'm the owner of Prime Real Estate and Developers. But I've spent most of my life in inner city, and my mother is a committed lady to the inner city, and she was a dear friend, long time, for Frank Jackson, and a supporter. We need this education bills and stuff passed, because education is the key to the success for our entire country. And I understand that, but I do have 2 questions. The first is, are there any programs for your teachers? Because your teachers, the ones I've run into when I've come to volunteer, have had very, very bad attitudes. And they don't instill any positive attitudes into the children to want success. And we need programs for the teachers to help them be able to withhold. So I want to know, what are you doing to help the teachers to gain that better positive attitude? And the second question, I'm going to just put them both out, is that you have built down there now, we've built with our tax dollars a brand new juvenile detention center on Quincy Avenue. But I haven't seen any brand new school system or school building built in that inner city area. And I need to see some more education coming and more buildings, good, decent buildings, that these kids can come in and don't feel like they're walking into a rat trap to try to learn something. And poor windows, poor heating, poor facilities.
Okay,
so
let me get a response.
What you're doing with that?
Let me get a response. Better teachers.
Well, I don't know if both statements are completely accurate, but I'll let
Well, just as far as buildings, just very quickly, right around that same juvenile center is the new John Adams High School, the new George Washington Carver K-8 school. We have done an aggressive rebuilding of the district with taxpayer support. Anton Gardena is new. So we are aggressively renovating or replacing our school buildings with taxpayer support. As far as our teachers, unfortunately there are those few that make others look bad, and we are working very aggressively to have a teacher development and evaluation system, and the legislation gave us the ability to take those people who are poor performers and exit them if necessary. Those that are not, we are investing greatly in their professional development around both the skills of being a high-quality teacher, the pedagogy of teaching, and also around high levels of expectation through content standards, and then through a third rung, which is the social and emotional practices of our schools, the cultures, the climates, and the supports. And we have documented evidence from outside researchers that those climates in our schools are moving in the positive direction. And so every student should expect to have great teachers and leaders in front of them. There are many, many people doing great work every day, and unfortunately there are those few that often get painted as the cast for the entire system. And we have to address those people, and we have both the evaluation to do it and then the supports in place for those who can and will do better.
We have another question here.
Over here. Yes, good afternoon. Before my question, I'm with the Turkish American Society of Ohio, just like our friend at Jewish Federation of Cleveland. As a community, we just want to say that we are behind you with this plan. We support you. We have about 1,000 Turkish American family kids attend public schools and charter schools in the Cleveland area. Again, we are supporting you on this project, and we wish you good luck. But my question is that what kind of programs, extracurricular activities this plan provide students and families?
So the plan doesn't focus directly on extracurriculars per se. What it does allow us to do is to restore art, music, physical education, and library and media services in our K-8 schools. And it allows us to start thinking differently about what school looks like. And so if you look at our MC² STEM high school, for example, those students actually travel from 9th grade at the Great Lakes Science Center to 10th grade at the GE's Nela Park campus to 11th and 12th grade where they'll actually be out in industry and working. The traditional football team doesn't work there, and so we've had to look at very different kinds of programming. And so, for example, at GE Nela Park, the kids actually interact in the basically the GE's version of the Y, where they interact with adults and in a intramural and extramural kind of situation. So we're trying really hard not to just stay in the same old confines of the way it's always been. We do still have great traditions like Glenville football, but we also have to be really thinking about a much more diverse way of interacting directly in our community. But the plan is not a plan about restoring sports and extracurriculars. It's a plan about increasing achievement dramatically for kids.
But you still want to keep sports if you can keep sports.
We want them engaged.
That's vital.
Well, you know, education is an experience, particularly high school. And it's the experience that child has in high school, which you cannot leave out sports and other kind of extracurricular activity and academics. So it's the experience that we're trying to create.
Yeah, quickly, were you in sports in high school? Yeah, I was. You were studying for the law then. Harlan Diamond, ladies and gentlemen, our host, Harlan Diamond, president of Executive Caterers at Landerhaven.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Superintendent Gordon. What a pleasure it is to have you here. You've got a mayor that is fighting for the right things. This card that somebody handed me, I want to read to you the mayor's quote. Turn around Cleveland schools for our children, our economy, our whole city. And I want to add to that, our county, our state, and our country. Whoever you can tell to vote, vote for this.
Okay. Thank you, Harlan. If I can take 30 seconds each, just 30 seconds. You are king for a day.
Yeah.
With a magic wand. Say it and it happens. What is your command?
Vote for issue 107.
And that will... Eric Gordon, if you could be king for a day and make it happen, what would it be?
And after you vote for 107, then I want every one of you to make sure that every child has a mentor to make sure they get it to the end of the day.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Gordon, CEO of Cleveland Schools, Frank Jackson, Mayor of the City of Cleveland. I'm Leon Bibb. Thank you for being with us. Be well. We'll talk again.
Please join us on Wednesday, November 14th, as Executive Caterers Corporate Club at Landerhaven looks at unleashing innovation. with special guests Beju Shah, CEO of Biomotive, Dr. Louis Proenza of the University of Akron, and Jim Free of NASA Glenn Research Center. The moderator will be Fox 8's Emmy Award-winning anchor, Lou Maglio.
Corporate Club is brought to you by Executive Caterers, a special place for special occasions. Medical Mutual of Ohio, Ohio's Get Well card, offering health plans for life. Time Warner Business Class, making more of every minute with the speed you need. Inside Business Magazine, your source for business in Northeastern Ohio. NewsChannel 5 on your side. 90.3 Idea Stream, the all-day brain food. ALG Computer Consulting and Training. Signs PDQ, professional, dependable quality. And Jones for printing services. Supporting sponsorships are brought to you by the Greater Cleveland Partnership, a catalyst for change. Northern Ohio Chambers of Commerce. A portion of the proceeds of the Corporate Club at Landerhaven benefits Junior Achievement of Greater Cleveland.